we've just covered in the last lecture some of the different ideological revolutionary movements that were in Russia. Before that, we talked about some of the reasons why Russia was potentially going to be turbulent due to certain things, and um, some added elements to things that were going to create a lack of stability for the regime in Russia was the Russo-Japanese War. Now you notice that this is 1904 to 1905, so this is well before World War I and the time of the Russian Revolution. But again, these are these things that kind of build up. So there's a patriotic surge in Russia to go to war with Japan. And just like, I had a lot of friends who were very supportive of George Bush and felt very almost excited about going into Afghanistan and Iraq. They had a different interpretation of how it was all going to go down. And then I had many of my really hawkish friends as the war continued and it didn't go the way according to plan and there was no weapons of mass destruction found and blah, blah, blah. It's like, then it starts to be a little bit demoralizing, and again, I'm not trying to push particular politics here, just to say, though, that, when it comes to doing wars, they always seem to kind of give a boost to a patriotic surge and pride, as long as it goes according to plan. It's just clear across the board, right? And it didn't go according to plan. And so you can see in some of these comics a caricature of the Tsar and humiliation by its defeat with Japan. I mean, look here, there's an English, the sand's running out. The Tsardom was badly shaken by its war with Japan, written in 1905. And then the Japanese, of course, making fun of him. So it didn't help the credibility of the regime. This is a little background. Now, in 1905, an Orthodox priest, remember, a very religious society, and we've talked about Christianity and Orthodox Church in Russia and its important role that it played, organized a long march in St. Petersburg, and several hundred were slaughtered. It was called Bloody Sunday. And again, these are all the kind of backdrop of things that were building up that towards a real strong militant discontent of the status quo in Russia. By October 1905, there was a massive general strike in response. St. Petersburg took over by a council, otherwise known as the Soviet. Remember that, hearing about the Soviet Union. We'll talk more about that. Now, the liberals were satisfied as the Tsar promised a constitution and parliament, or a Duma. This was called the October Manifesto. But remnants of the revolt were crushed. And so this is kind of one of those moments where a regime has to think through certain things. They're going to try to crush maybe the most extremely revolutionary and most militant of something like this. And then you have like a broad base of people who want to see change, but they're going to be satisfied quite easily if you just kind of give a little more. They're not looking to necessarily overthrow the government and so forth. And so you have this kind of state of things. And then Russia enters World War I. And this is linking everything, right? So I just want to point out, this was maybe almost a decade earlier. But, Russia, I mean, again, we're kind of cramming and bypassing a lot of things. There is this background of discontent and of the government in various ways trying to address it or not. Now, with Russia entering World War I, this is going to be crucial. And why? And what are some of the things? All right. Well, several million Russians die from the war and devastated economy. The Tsar, he's not sitting at home eating and getting fat. I guess that would have made him look worse, but he was far away from home, so he wasn't really, directly being involved in the day-to-day affairs of the country. And they were left to the Empress Alexandra, that was really under the spell of this guy, Rasputin. And gosh, you look at his profile, he's just like chilling, right? I mean, he just has such an intense, um, frightening look. And this guy, you can do a lot of research on him. He's very interesting to read about. He was this kind of weird holy man who, her son had a problem. Oh gosh, what's the term? When he bleeds, he can't stop bleeding. I can't. It's losing my. I'm losing it right now for a second. But he seemed to be able to help her son out over his illness, which deeply impressed her. Now, this guy was also known as a womanizer. He was disgusting. There's little stories that he had like dried fish soup in his beard for days, and at the same time could be very charming. But he's clearly had a grip on the Empress, and many elites even in Russia were just horrified by the way that he had this grip on her. And so he ends up being assassinated in 1916 in a court conspiracy. But this is really the state that the Russian monarchy is in. That the husband, the Tsar, is out on the war front with millions of Russians dying. And then you have his wife left behind under the spell of this kook. And so things are not well in Russia, right, at this time. Now, actually, I'm going to end there and we're going to go to the next phase.